Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
So
sir.
I'd like
Absolutely.
to. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can.
Thank you, Jyotiji, for the introduction. And it gives me great pleasure in saying a warm hello in the United States of America. And I'd like to start out by thanking the Vice Chancellor Nautiyal, Pandey Saab, respected Joshi ji, other panelists, Mr. Khajanchi, Mr. Jha, and other fellows in the audience, and especially Jyoti ji. I have a PowerPoint presentation prepared, so let's see if I can share it. I don't know if you can see
Anshu
what
can
I'm.
help.
Is this visible to all?
Now we'll share the screen right now. We're just trying to share it, sir.
So this is the
You can share, sir.
topic. Hello. Can I move on?
Yes, sir. You can share, sir. Share it.
Yes, sir.
Please.
Able to hear you properly due to connectivity or whatever, but I'm assuming you can see it. So I'm going to touch base on. I was asked to talk about education and the impact of COVID on online teaching. Unfortunately, my expertise is a little bit away from there, but I'll try to share my own experience, how we coped with the pandemic. So this is the outline that I'm going to follow. First, I'm going to present the picture of how COVID has affected the US. I'm sure you are getting a lot of news and in a TV coverage of goings on here. So how many people, I mean, have died already and all the sort of thing. But you may want to get a first-hand perspective from somebody living in the country. So I'll spend maybe the first maybe 10 minutes maybe on COVID in the US. And there are three specific things that I'm going to cover: healthcare, economy, and finance, which happens to be my area. And then how it has affected education, which is the topic of today. How it has affected the elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, all the colleges and universities in the US. Then I will actually spend most of the time talking about the transition to online teaching and learning that occurred to us at my college. Specifically, I'll be talking about the challenges faced by professors, administrators, staff, and students, because these are the four constituents that make up any institute of higher learning. And finally, I have some recommendations based on what I have read in the literature, a little bit time I had to read about it within the last 2 or 3 days that I had to prepare for this presentation. So with that, let me start by talking about how COVID has affected healthcare and the medical system in the United States. As we all know, there's a intense and high-speed race to develop a vaccine or a cure for coronavirus, and we don't have one as yet. And we don't know when one will get a vaccine for it. There's some potential, there is a lot of promise, but in terms of a finished product, we don't have one yet. In the US alone, we've had, I think yesterday, there were 107,000 plus deaths in the US alone. I mean, nowhere else in the world have so many people died. And there are many reasons for it, but today is not the platform for me to dwell in all the reasons of the death. I mean, whether US was prepared or unprepared or the response we got. So another day. Doctors themselves are unsure of many virus, you know. So it's like, you know, they're trying to come up with ways to minimize and mitigate the situation, the pandemic effects. As this uncharted territory for everyone, we don't have a guideline or a path that we can follow based on a prior experience. Now, as happens in any pandemic, any chaos or natural calamity, different people take resort to different means. And in the US also, there's been increase in alcohol and drug abuse, domestic violence, depression, and anxiety, leading to all kinds of social problems that affect education in the end. When we talk about economy and finance, and as I said, this is my area and I can go on forever on this, but let me just summarize it in these few bullet points. US.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Excuse me. Sorry to interrupt you, sir. Can you share your screen, sir, please? It has yet not been shared.
My apologies. I thought I was sharing it.
You can try, sir, once again. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. It is right now, sir.
Okay. All right. Well, let me just go back to this is one slide to show the outline, because there's the outline I'll follow.
Okay.
The three parts about how COVID affected US, and number two, the transition to online teaching and learning and experience at my college, and then the recommendations. So I already talked about the healthcare, so I'm not going to repeat it. Now I'm on this screen, economy and finance, and what I was saying that in the US we have more than 40 million Americans have filed for unemployment. But yesterday we got some good news, and it seems like we may have bottomed out on the unemployment seat, because we have now started adding jobs, and it's a good news for the US economy, which serves as the beacon for the rest of the world. So if the US economy is showing some signs of positive signs, it may be a good news to Nifty and Sensex in India also. Our unemployment level yesterday, the 14.7 is now an old statistic. Yesterday it came down to below 14%, like 13.5%. So it's a lot better. We didn't keep any record during the Great Depression. If you know about American history, in the US, the Great Depression took place from 1929 to 31, 32. And in those years, there was no record keeping, but approximately 25% unemployment level is guessed or assessed. Some claim that due to following the advice of scientists, we have created another Great Depression. So, I mean, right now there's a big tussle going on between the scientists, the medical fraternity on one side, and the economists and the financial people on the other side, whether we should open the economy. We have gone on the side of lockdowns and hurting the economy. my stand on that is we need to have a balance between caution, extreme caution on the lockdown side, and extreme opening up and just carelessness on the other side. There should be a medium, a fine line that divides this tussle. Can we ever afford to do this again? And that's the question that the economists would ask, because we didn't do this with the previous epidemics that we had with SARS, which came in Asia, particularly 2013. I think that was the time MERS, the Middle East, the Middle Eastern respiratory syndrome, the H1N1 or the bird flu, the COVID-19 is now there. So if we keep doing lockdowns, and that comes with unpreparedness, we were not prepared. And so I think it was a wise move to start out with the lockdown. But then how long the lockdown should stay, and whether in the 2 months or over 2 months now that we have faced lockdown, we have learned, and we have learned to adapt ourselves economically and business-wise. Will we lock down again the next time? I mean, these are questions that are still open, and we don't have answers to that. And we need economic experts also to be heard. Yes, we are hearing the medical fraternity, and yes, very rightly, we have aired a little bit more on their side, but can we afford to continue doing that? Especially now that we have moved from the pandemic a little bit. We are seeing the slowing down, at least in the majority part of the United States and the rest of the world also. So people are demanding to go back to work. And now in the US, we have opened up, and so people are gradually returning to work. The work itself has earned respect. People are giving more validity and treating work with more dignity and respect. I mean, there are some advantages. There are fewer commutes, fewer roads on the cars, fewer cars on the roads, excuse me. There's less pollution, less commute time. And all of this could add as much as 1 hour per person to the productivity, which is awesome news for businesses. Since people are able to work from home, technology has exploded, and which is good news for everybody. Online education is now being more accepted, and it will only grow. There was time when online education was frowned upon, and gradually we went from online, from the total class and now hybrid. And I heard my previous speakers, Professor Pandeyji and Professor Jaji, talk about online education and how it is growing, and there are definitely advantages to it. So with that, of course, with the COVID-19, education was the first casualty. As soon as we got the word that the virus has reached the United States, the first closures were schools. So initially it were the elementary schools, middle school, high schools that were affected. But then I remember on March 12th, Georgia Gwinnett College was closed down, and we announced a lockdown, and nobody was, students were home. Professors were gradually, allowed. So initially it was a total lockdown, but then gradually we were able to, the professors were able to get to our offices, get the essential teaching materials, but we were not allowed to stay in our offices for too long. So we had to take everything out of our offices and into our homes so we could do online teaching at home. And for 2 weeks, from March 16th, Monday to March 30, 2 weeks, there was an intense training that the faculty were given, because some of us were totally unfamiliar with online teaching. We had not done that. As mentioned earlier, online teaching was frowned upon. We didn't quite appreciate online teaching. We were still engrossed in the traditional model of teaching, despite some of us get to online. Some of the courses finally were able to go from total class in class to hybrid. You know, is combination traditional in-class teaching and the totally online teaching. So something in between. We were able to get to the hybrid teaching, and then we moved to the online. Right now, we are doing everything online. So there's nothing in the classroom. And what it does when we move to, when we do transition to online, of course, there are challenges. And I'm going to share some of the challenges that we faced at my college. And I've divided it into 4 categories, because any institution will have 4 constituents. We have professors, administrators, staff, and students. So all these 4 will have challenges. So the first is talk about the professors. I can use my own experience here. We had a lot of challenges. A professor can face a challenge from these 4 areas. You know, when you join as a faculty member, you are expected to do these 4 roles. You are, of course, a teacher, but then you're also an advisor and mentor. As we have to advise students of what courses to take, and then what kind of outlines, what kind of majors to select, what kind of job opportunities. So that's a mentor role. And then the service role is mostly service to the institution in terms of community, committee work, in terms of service to the profession. When you are serving your discipline, you are serving your, in my case, the finance fraternity around the world. And then the research role is conducting research, attending conferences, webinars, seminars, you know, all those. So in terms of the teaching role, clearly the main focus of a faculty member, and here also at Georgia Gwinnett College, we regard ourselves as a teaching institution. We are not a high-flown research university like many other universities are famous for. So our main responsibility as a faculty member is teaching, and therefore online teaching becomes the primary focus of a faculty member at Georgia Gwinnett College. So my personal challenge was to learn technology. Now, I will admit that I am not a technology guru or anything like that, but I did already I use technology in my classes to connect students with the real world. This comes in terms of Yahoo Finance or Dun & Bradstreet or Merrill Lynch databases. So see, we use technology in a classroom, but this is a totally different kettle of fish when we talk of delivering lectures remotely from my basement. So learning these